Hello, I'm going to try really hard not to use the microphone because I promise you it's going to be a much more enjoyable experience for you and a much more enjoyable experience for me, otherwise it's just going to get monotone. And I'm a theatre director, and if I can't speak to this group of people for 20 minutes and be heard, then I'm getting out of professional show business. My name's Alan, I'm one of five, I'm not in professional show business, I'm one of five people that run a thing called Slung Low. And I was asked to talk about what we do, but crucially, some things that we've got wrong. Some things that we're not good at, rather than spend the entire time bragging about what we do well. And I want to talk about something that's live. We moved in on the 9th of January into the oldest working men's club in Britain, which is called the Holbeck, which was established in 1877. And don't tell anyone, but we'll get a blue plaque in September, which everyone's very excited about. But in order to explain to you why we moved into this club, why it was important and why it is in equal parts glorious and disastrous, I need to explain who we are, what we do, and crucially why and how we do it. We do four things, the first of which is we make large-scale people's theatre, which is a combination of amateur performers and people who have spent their life being performers. They're paid, and those shows are in public spaces, they're political, they're always on fire, and they're often on water. And we've done that for 20 years. And that's the thing that we did that garnered the reputation we have with the Arts Council, which is why we're funded. And it's an important part of who we are, and increasingly it's an important part of where we've come from, because that's now only 25% of what we do. The second thing we do is, for 20 years we've made theatre for much larger theatres. And whenever we've done that, we've come away with stuff. Lots and lots of stuff. Projectors and headphones and computers and lights and stages and transit vans. And that stuff isn't ours, I don't believe that. That stuff is ours, it's ours, it's the Commonwealth's. I didn't earn it, it's taxpayers' money, it's public's money. So therefore, if we have anything, then it's yours. So everything we have, including all our spaces, including the bedrooms that we have in our public spaces, including the vans, it's anyone who wants to have use. All we ask is that you donate whatever you can, and increasingly artists don't have any money, so they don't give us stuff, they give us time. They'll come and paint something, they'll move some boxes, they'll bake a cake. But that's still absolutely everything we have, except for rock bands. Rock bands are not allowed to borrow our van anymore because they're animals. Every time they take it, they bring it back full of vomit, and I'm 40 and there are only so many times I can mop out a van. But otherwise, everything we have is everybody else's. And that takes up a lot of our time, because people go, can I borrow this then, and now you want that then, so we have to do the administration. So that's 25% of what we do. And the third 25%, the third thing we do is every Sunday at 5 o'clock in our venue, which up until really recently was 5 railway arches in a desolated, completely abandoned street, we present a show that comes from somewhere else in the country that is in some way or other radical. Now that's a really broad word, and sometimes it just means someone who tells really great ghost stories but can't get funded by the Arts Council for lots of things about what we think about excellence, and sometimes that means genuinely politically dangerous radical work that requires risk assessments with police. But whatever it is, whatever the definition of radical, that show presents on Sunday at 5 o'clock, and it's pay what you decide, and 100% of the money that you give into a jar goes to the visiting artist. And that's taken up quite a lot of our time as well, especially when we bring people from abroad. That takes a bit of care, they're trying to connect up tours. And the fourth thing is we run a cultural community college. We made this big show in Hull. We had to live there for 10 months, and it was on a floating platform, and we had to learn how to abseil and drive safety boats and all sorts of other things. And what we realised is adult education is a funny business now. We know how problematic universities are. £27,000 to do a performing arts degree in Huddersfield University is a broken bit of market, so we know that. But then you get in-work employment, but that's just for what your boss needs you to learn. So what we discovered is that we were taught the least amount of knowledge about lots of things. So we have a licence for driving a cherry picker, yeah. But we've been taught for 4 hours. I don't feel particularly safe in this massive machine, but I had a licence, so if I worked for you and there was an accident, you were cool, and it was all on me, and that felt quite problematic. And when I was a kid, the Women's Institute used to teach my mum how to do carpentry. And you used to be able to go to the Scouts or the church, and there would be classes and all sorts of things. And we looked around and realised that all of those organisations were now running food banks. But they were no longer looking at the development of the human spirit, the human intelligence, the creative educational tools. They were too busy gathering tins of soup and trying to hand them out to people who needed them. So there was this gap, and in Leeds that gap is filled. It's filled by the marketplace. It happens, it's really good, but it costs £180 a day. Now, I want to learn welding, but I don't have £180 to do it. So we decided that we would open a cultural community college. And, and we would teach everything we could, the widest definition of culture. From carnival costume making to Indian cooking to how to write a soap opera to photography and documentary making and Irish dancing and baking cakes and plastering and welding. That we're even going to teach golf. If you decide it's culture, then it's culture. That would all be paid what you decide. And the only thing was it would be in no way connected to the employment market. This would be because it is useful to learn. It is good to learn. And it makes you scared of one less thing in the world. It makes you walk at each corner as you go down the street. And that is fundamentally a good thing. So we started with stargazing. Because 400 or 500 years ago, the knowledge in stargazing was the knowledge of a god. I mean, to genuinely look at the galaxy and go, oh yeah, that was just holy men, poets, madmen, and gods. And now, I got a thing on my watch that tells me where the North Star is at all times. What a world to live in! And so we taught people how to stargaze. And the reason I love stargazing is godlike knowledge and utterly impossible to make a living from it. So I was worried we teach people to bake cakes and then they go home and like open little kind of boutique cake baking things and it would all be ruined. So we were, let's start with stargazing and see how we get on. So they all came, they all learned. I went to the West Yorkshire Stargazing Society and went to an observatory and they finished and they went, wow, what's next? So that's the fourth thing we do. So we started life as an outdoor political theatre company that blows things up for a living, and then we started to lend things to people, and then we started to welcome people into our venue, and then we could hold that space for brilliant experts to come and teach other people stuff they wanted to know. And how we do that, there's a couple of mechanisms that's really important. We think a lot about participation versus the exceptionality of the artist. So we accept that we're all of us artists, we're all of us as important as each other. But there is a profound difference, I think, from someone who has chosen to spend their life doing one specific thing than someone who's doing that because they are, in this moment, passionate about it. They're not unequal, they're just different. So we think about that a lot, and in order to compensate for that, we have a community advisory board. And they are a brilliant group of people who don't necessarily all like us. They're residents, and some of them are audience and fans, but some of them are not, and two of them are openly critical. And they come together every 3 months, and they demand a set of things. Now, we're not a charity. We're funded by the Arts Council, we're an NPO, but we're not a charity. I don't have a board. There are 5 of us, and we are beholden to each other. We are not beholden to anyone else, except for our community, and doing a good job, and looking after our money and all those other things. So the Community Advisory Board have no legal responsibility. So people who would not necessarily be deemed to have the authority to be on a board, or there'd be questions about their suitability, they can be on our board because I take the legal responsibility for everything. But that only works if we don't take that Community Advisory Board 100% seriously. So if they ask for something, I don't argue with them, I give them what they want. Because if I don't give them what they want, I break that connection. Then people are saying, hang on a minute, you can just run around doing whatever you want now. I have to give them what they want. Now, they've asked for Frozen on Ice. I'm not kidding. They can't have Frozen on Ice. But actually, when you have a conversation about that, they want really great children's theatre. So they get really great children's theatre. We didn't use to host children's theatre of any type, because it's a pain in the arse, and there's lots more forms to fill in, and then they come and they throw sweets everywhere, and actually because people said, that's what we want, that's what we did. We were profoundly changed by their immediate demand. We have a board of 8 professional women who are brilliant in their field, and they are taken just as seriously and no more seriously than the Community Advisory Board. And they direct us in all sorts of ways to make sure we stay out of trouble, to make sure we have the right connections, and we have a group of educationists. There's a woman who runs a department in a university, and a woman who homeschools her disabled daughter, and then 16 people in between with different variety of experience in education. And they sit on the college board to make sure that it isn't just us running workshops. That level of scrutiny, mixed with the Legal responsibility to take the risks that we're aware of is vital to how we do what we do, and crucially how quickly we do it. From the decision to take over the oldest working men's club in Britain to doing it was just short of 3 months. We can do that because the legal responsibility for the massive amount of money that we pumped into this building was ours. If it goes wrong, it's on our heads and no one else's. And we have a company wage. The average wage of the nation is £28,000, that's £108 a day, or £540 a week. And every single person who works for the company gets paid that. Patrick Stewart's worked with us, and if you come in, I was going to say make the tea, but I make the tea. If you come in and you're straight out of school at 16, you will be paid £540. When we work for the BBC or the DCMS, whoever, we charge them a shit ton of money because they've got a shit ton of money and they can pay it. We don't get to see any of that. The buyout is really important. That money goes back into our activity. And what it means is that we're free from the market. I know how much I'm getting paid. It's £28,000 a year. There are many people in this country who get paid less than me, as get paid more than me. And not for nothing, I can't afford to go to the theatre. So that allows us to make decisions that are not in any way based upon how financially rewarding they will be for me or for my team. They are literally just how useful will they be. We sometimes make decisions to make money because the college needs more money or whatever else. We're not entirely impervious to the market, but we as individuals are removed from it. That is an unbelievable privilege. That, alongside the pay what you decide, allows us to be, as much as we feel we can, to be completely free of those shackles. Subsidy is there for people to have thoughts beyond the market. It's not there to prime the pumps and make more money. And that company wage allows us to do that. It locks us in. It is a pain in the arse. I'm 40, I've got a son, and I make £540 a week. But half the people in this country earn less money than me. And all the people in my local community think I'm paid too much. And every single person on my professional advisory board thinks I'm paid too little. And that always brings me up short. So we were based in 5 railway arches, and it was owned by Network Rail, and Network Rail decided to sell every railway arch in the country to a hedge fund for 1.7 billion. So all the railway arches used to be owned by us, and now they're owned by a hedge fund for 1.7 billion. And you couldn't buy the individual arches, so it became clear that we had to leave. And we wanted to go before it started to become embarrassing. Around the corner, we live in Holbeck. Holbeck's one of the most deprived areas in Leeds. It's the oldest and the youngest and the most illiterate and the most unemployed and the sickest, or at least in the top 3 of each of those categories. It's a brilliant place. It has the best kebabs in Leeds. It is full of fantastic people. But how we measure these things, it is deprived. It has a working men's club. It is the oldest working men's club in Britain. And that had run into financial difficulty, like every working men's club in Britain has, like every pub has. And a group of volunteers, 40 of them, had run the club for 4 years to try and keep it going, and they were running out of energy. And we did this big show in Hull, and we spent £1 million in it. You fucking imagine, £1 million. The BBC paid for most of that. There's a thing called theatre tax relief, which means that if you spend a lot of money on theatre, no matter what the theatre is, you get a lot of money back from the government. It's obscene. It means that more money goes to Andrew Lloyd Webber than all of us combined in this room. However, it exists, and I have made a decent reputation smashing in the head with a baseball bat. Whenever I get the chance, I stand up and I shout about it. It's disgusting. I've said it to everybody. So we did this big show in Hull, and we spent £1 million. And my accountant says to me, "You're due some theatre tax relief." And I said, "No, we're not. No, mate, I can't. I've slagged it off." It's 87 grand. Okay, we can't take it because we'll be finished. We're men and women of principle. But if we don't take it, we're finished, because how can I look any funder in the eye and say, "Can you give me please £100,000 to do something important?" And they say, "You the idiot that turned down £87,000 from George Osborne." So we were stuck. And then there's a brilliant, one of the 5 is called Joanna. She's a producer, she's amazing. And she was having a meeting at the Working Men's Club about something else we were doing. We sit on the planning board there. And the 40 volunteers had left bank statements on the table, because that's what happens when an organisation is run by 40 volunteers. And she looked at it and she said, "Oh, you owe a lot of money." And they said, "Yeah, £87,000. So we gave them the money. And we said, "We'd like to give you this money. We don't want the club. I don't want to own a club. You've already heard about how we're paid. If we own a club, what on earth are we going to do with it?" So I don't want to own the club. It's a club. For those of you who don't know what the club is, a thing commonly held by a group of people for the benefit of the people. It's a cooperative. So I don't want to own that. But you're exhausted. And maybe we can do this. We give you the money, we get back the deeds, you keep the deeds. We move in as managers. We'll run the club. We won't take any money for running the club. The money will still go through your bank account, and you'll keep all the profit. At the end of the financial year, if you're not in profit, I will make you up to zero. And I'll give you £3,000 a year as rent so that you can organise the community events that you've been doing. Two things. You have to pay everyone who works here who isn't Sunlow. And you have to pay them the living wage. Here it's £90. That includes the cleaner who hadn't been paid for it. And the second thing is, we'll write into the contract all the bars and the lounge will stay exactly the same. We're open Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday lunchtime, Sunday evening, and 3 hours before every Leeds United home game. And we'll do that. Bingo is written into the contract that it has to happen at 7 o'clock on a Sunday, and we'll do that. The membership will... I cannot change the carpet, it's in the contract. But in the rest of the building, that's ours to manage for the benefit of the community. And it was in shit state, it was dilapidated, it needed all sorts of things, asbestos moving and all sorts of things. And we'll guarantee this at the end of our funding to 2020. So they had to think about it, and they obviously went, yes please, this sounds brilliant. And we said, well, the members have to vote. There are 400 members, 40 on the steering committee, 400 members. They have to vote, and if it's not unanimous, we're not going to do it, because this is going to be the next 10 years of our life, and I'm not living with one guy in the corner constantly shouting at me. It needs to be a community. So we met 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning. I presented for an hour, and I said, I'm not going to sit down until I've answered all of your questions. So 2 hours later, I'd sweated through a suit, and I'd answered all of their questions, which is where they told me that they thought £28,000 was far too much money to be paid for doing what I was doing. And they voted, it was unanimous, and it went through. So since then, we've renovated the place. Upstairs is a 250-seat cabaret space. There's a kids' room with a soft floor and toys, so children can be in there. We've turned 2 rooms upstairs into 2 bedrooms so people can come and stay. There's a professional-grade kitchen, brilliant. And our college has moved in there, and the shows have moved in there. And crucially, on a Saturday, we don't do anything Saturday evening. And so we said, well, it used to be a thing where you could hire it for £25 an hour, and then there was this cleaning. It was one of those complicated systems, which was almost designed for you not to go and book it. So we said, you can have it for whatever you want. Which was, on the one hand, amazing, and on the other hand, a profound mistake. So we've had a Ghanaian funeral, First Holy Communion, 3 majorette awards. Majorettes are young girls between 8 and 14. And I don't know what they do, but an award ceremony, every single one of them gets a cup, and then they have a buffet, and then they're full of sugar, and they run around in circles, trampling food into the carpet, until their drunk parents fall over. I think it's like folk dancing. What else? We had a queer cabaret at the weekend. So there's this bewildering and brilliant and glorious variety of activity in the club on Saturday. And the reason why it's a brilliant idea is obvious, it's brilliant. And the reason why it's a crap idea, well, the reason why it's a failure, the thing you asked me to talk about, is firstly, on a Sunday we invite the theatre company in. And so that means that on a Sunday we have to come in before the theatre company because we want to cherish everyone, and hoover the floor. And it takes 3 hours. And I have never hated human beings more than cleaning up sausage rolls. For 3 hours. Bombay mix, and crisps, and peanuts, and grapes. And I'm not kidding, it's become a real problem. My humanity is dying, because there's this thing that's commonly held. We don't charge anyone for it. You say you can give what you want, but no one's got any money. And they leave at midnight with the place trashed, and it's killing me. And we find ways, there's mechanisms of keeping your faith, but this commonly held thing, now we've moved in to look after it, this commonly held thing is not as held as tightly. And one of the reasons is that new people are coming in, which is amazing, which is exactly what we're for. But they're the people who were physically kept from the space before. In a vile, cruel way. We have 2 rules. Be kind and be useful. And this place was not kind before we took it over. And it was a bit useful, but not very. And there are whole groups of people, whole swathes of our community. African Muslims who were literally just barred from the place. And now we're letting them in. Or actively going to them and saying, there's this resource, it's yours, would you like it? And they're going, yes, please, that's useful. I'm having an event, thank you. The amount of tension that's causing is huge. So despite the fact, not out of any generosity on our part, in an act of politics, that we took this money and we saved this collective resource, actually now we find that people don't want it to be a collective resource, they want it to be a resource for them. And that's where our community engagement has got knuckle dusters now. I had to close the bar because I didn't let someone say the N-word. And they were furious. How dare you? And I had to have a moment. I thought, I dare. Actually, I dare. This is too far now. And the reason why I mention all of that is it's obviously a failure. In many senses. It's glorious. We'll carry on. It's not the end. It will get better. It will get worse. We will renegotiate. We will strive again. But we found ourselves something to hold on to, because obviously these are really complicated things, having to smash through them because I need to finish in 2 minutes. But they're complicated things, and each of them are nuanced, and you're talking about very fragile people in our community in many senses. And what we've learned is everyone can have whatever they want. Someone came to us and said, we want this really complicated vertical allotment. It took us 4 days and £1,500 to build it, but we built it and we put it out for it. If you live in Holbeck and you ask us for something, we will get round to it. In 3 months, we have done everything that everybody's asked. I've spent over 100,000. I've spent the entire Arts Council grant. I've spanked it. I'm doing anything. It's a really good use of money. One came in the other day, needed £3 for a minicamp. Yours. It is a good use of Arts Council funding. It is a good use of the reputation we built making theatre. But what no one can do is stop other people having what they want. And at that point, which you think, I'm looking at you all and you're like, well, that seems obvious, Al. The walls come crumbling down. The fury. You can't do a fundraiser for sex workers. I hate sex workers. You're useful and kind, get out. And that is extraordinary. And it has been challenging. And so on the one hand, Holbeck's brilliant. I'm going to quickly flick through some pictures so you don't think it's all sad. We had a cabaret. We decided we'd throw a cabaret. The cabaret that had something for everyone. We had Davina De Campo, which is the most amazing drag queen from Lanzarote on the one hand, and on the other hand, she's an amazing experimental theatre queer artist working with Jamie Fletcher in the city. She's both those things. And we had Michael Wolff, a magician, who is an incredibly complicated contemporary performer, and also just a magician who does boob jokes. And both those things, this whole evening was full of it, and for one night, everybody was there. What's he called? Chief Executive of the Arts Council turned up, and the 16-year-old girl from around the corner. Everybody in between. And for one night we held that space. Now the trick is he's got to do that for the rest of the time. But the rest of the time is mostly made up of people coming into my office going, I can't believe you've just done that. Why is there a bike shed outside? I don't drive a bike. Because other people do. Everybody gets what they want, but nobody gets to say what other people can't. I'm going to quickly show you this photo. Have I gone over?
No, you're perfect.
Am I? Well, I've never been perfect in my life. So this is the bar. Can you see this? Yeah. It's just lots of pictures of people being pissed, by the way. So it's been a skill. That's Davina. Have people seen her before? Oh, if you ever get the chance, she's absolutely banging. Someone ate some fire. This is School of Night, who are Ken Campbell's Bardic improvisers. Have you ever seen them? They're amazing, but they're quite wild. And the first set went really badly, and then they brought it back because this girl jumped on stage. And then 250 people cheered. And in the middle of the cabaret, that's Nick Ahad, who did political comedy about how much he hates white people, which... It's our house now. Thanks, Dave. He's in the middle of I'll leave you with this. In the middle of the evening, we stopped, and the entire creative team, all the artists, served dinner to every single person there. And it strikes me when I'm sort of being faux happy and faux upset with you, because that's the nature of these gigs. But it strikes me that in the moments when I think, hang on a minute, I think I know the way through this. I think I know how to bring all these pieces together. It's in the moment where everybody who I work with and who I love picked up plates of food and served 250 people in the space of about 8 minutes. And that felt somehow really useful, and is a kind of both a practical and a metaphor for how I think we'll make our way through it. Thanks so very much for listening, and sorry for shouting it for 20 minutes.